Hello friends, this is Worm and it's Monday, which means it's time for another episode of Exotic Recrafting, the series where we take a look at weak, underused, or straight up bad exotics in Destiny 2, and I talk about how I could potentially, or how Bungie, could potentially make them better, or at least bring them up above where they are currently. And today we have Legend of Acrius on the menu. And Legend of Acrius is a really fun weapon. It's a really good weapon in terms of regular content, but I think that it still is it's really lacking, and it's primarily lacking for two reasons. Reason number one, it is a shotgun, it's a heavy weapon. It's a shotgun and a heavy weapon, and it doesn't have the same utility that Tractor Cannon has, because Tractor Cannon is also an exotic shotgun in the heavy slot, but it doesn't have the same utility that Tractor Cannon does. When you have shotguns in general, inside of in-game content like Grandmasters and stuff, are already risky to use, and Acrius suffers that exact same effect. So we're gonna have some ideas to hopefully help mitigate that. But the other thing that Acrius suffers from is old age. And what I mean by this is the perks that come on the weapon are incredibly out of date, and they're not really up to the the standard of the times that we have currently. And so we're going to talk about some reworks of some of these perks to bring them more in line with where we are currently. But first, I want to start with the very simple things that Bungie can do to make Legend of Acrius better, starting with none other than anti-champion modifications. Now, I feel like we do this at every single exotic video. We talk about a way that an exotic can have anti-barrier, unstoppable, or overload, blah blah blah. And then I go back and I remember, no, we don't do that every video. We only do it on a couple of videos. But Legend of Acrius, in my opinion, fits the bill for a perfect weapon to have unstoppable, an unstoppable staggering capability built into it. Shock blast. I don't know. To me, it just makes sense. Okay, it doesn't really make sense for barrier, it doesn't really make sense for overload. I mean, I guess you could say it makes sense for overload, but we have Tractor Cannon, which I'm pretty sure can stun overload anyways. So Legend of Acrius, perfect candidate for just having anti-barrier, or unstoppable staggering capability. Just give it that, and that would be a perfect change to start with. However, I think that on top of the ability to stagger unstoppable champions, we also need a damage boost to the weapon. And at first I toyed with the idea of just increasing its damage across the board, but I also feel like we don't need it across the board. I feel like particularly what we need a damage boost on is champions and mini bosses. So that would be the second change I would make, is increase the damage against specifically champion and mini bosses, not bosses, and not red bars, and not majors. Okay, red bars, majors are already cooked by Legend of Acrius. It doesn't need a buff against them. I mean, Bungie could goof around and do it anyways, just so that we could shoot a drag in the Cosmodrome for like 1,000,000 damage, which would be incredibly fun. I'm not gonna lie, but that's not something that's reasonable, I guess. No, I think that this weapon should be able to kill champions. Like, it should be a champion nuker. Like, it's a big freaking shotgun. I mean, like what else could you want from a big freaking shotgun other than the ability to obliterate a mini boss or obliterate a champion? So I think that doing that, again, not bosses. I think bosses would be too much. It would encourage a play style that's not really, I would say, not really healthy for the game, which is just get up close to a boss, stand his feet, put a well down, whatever, put a bubble down and shoot it with Legend of Acrius multiple times. Like, I don't think that would necessarily be a healthy thing for the game. But I think that in terms of anti-champion, all champion types, whether it's overload, unstoppable, barrier, whatever, would take more damage and should take more damage from Legend of Acrius. Now, the damage boost, I think I'd kind of leave that to Bungie. I'm thinking a hefty boost, like 75, 80, maybe even 85% additional damage to these champions. And the reason why I say that is because this is a high risk weapon. It is a shotgun, it is a heavy weapon, it has incredibly slow handling. Like, that's a big thing. Like, it's a very slow handling weapon. Like, if I'm running to kill a champion, like, I need that champion to die, right? I need that champion to be gone, and I need to be gone quickly, otherwise I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna be in a situation where my team can't revive me. So then we go back to, or I change off Acrius, never use it again, and I use something else that's safer, right? So I think that having that, the ability to absolutely obliterate champions, I would say in 2 shots, at most 3 shots inside Grandmaster content, but I would say 2 shots is where it should be. Boom, boom. and a champion is gone. You know, again, for that high risk, high reward feeling. But that's kind of the end of the basic changes I would make to the weapon. Again, just increasing damage and giving it anti-champion capability. But now I want to talk about the exotic perks Shock Blast and Long March, because I have ideas for both of these that I think could, again, bring it back up in terms of the meta. And I want to start with Shock Blast. And Shock Blast, I don't know about y'all, but when I say that just screams Arc Blind. That screams Arc Blind. And so I decided, what if we built into it like that? Okay, so what if Legend of Acrius had the ability to create a blinding explosion rather on a kill. Okay, so you're running in there, you run up to an unstoppable champion, you shoot it, it staggers it, then you kill it, and it creates an unstoppable a blinding blast around you. That would help in terms of the risk reward situation, because you're risking your life to get down there to kill that champion. It fires very slowly. It takes at least 2 shots to kill a champion. Why not create a massive explosion around you that blinds enemy? That way you can have a potentially safe path to get back. Like you're not invincible by any means. You know, enemies that are outside of that blast could still shoot at you, but at least it would help you to get out of that situation a little bit better. And again, that would help with the risk and reward situation. You took the risk to go down there, kill the champion, you killed the champion. Now your reward is a blinding explosion that blinds other enemies that you could either start chaining together, or you could use that as an opportunity to run back to cover, back to safety, you switch to your primary or whatever other weapon you're using, and continue fighting with your team. To me, it just makes sense. Now, I also toyed around with the idea of creating that blinding explosion on just hits, but at the same time, I think that would be a little bit too much, because then, you know, I mean, you could literally blind a room forever. You know, if you run into a champion, for example, and you shoot him, and, you know, it creates that blinding explosion, or specifically an unstoppable, if we're referring back to the anti-unstoppable changes I talked about earlier, you could just kind of infinitely chain a blinding explosion that could blind everything in the room. So I think it should definitely come off of kills. And I think similar to Felwinter's Helm, it should also create an explosion based on the tier of enemy. So if you kill a Dreg in the Cosmodrome, it's going to have a small blinding effect that's going to last like 5 seconds. But if you kill a major, you know, like an Orange Bar Knight or something like that, it's going to be a little bit bigger area, a little bit longer, all the way up to the point of killing like a boss. You know, and a boss is going to give you like a 15-second blind in like a 40-meter radius around it or something like that. But that's the change I would make for Shock Blast. Once you do that, I don't think Shock Blast would really need anything else, because like that would bring it up to par with other exotics that are, you know, competing with it, and even legendaries that are competing with it, because it gives it that synergy with 3.0s, and it helps with risk reward. Now, moving on from Shock Blast, I want to talk about his other unique perk, which is Long March. And Long March is another perk that suffers from just being old, similar to Shock Blast. But Long March, what it does is essentially when you have Legend of Acrius in your hands, your radar has more range, and I think it's 4 meters. Your radar has 4 meters of extra range, which means, hypothetically speaking, you could see an enemy 4 meters faster than they could. So if you were, what is the range? I think 60. I think it's 70 meters. The outer ring of your radar is 70 meters. It shows you anybody within 70 meters, between 70 and 60 and 70 meters. I don't know exactly. Okay, never mind. Let's not focus on that. You would be able to see them hypothetically before they saw you. Now, again, this is just an out-of-date perk, because when this perk was introduced, or when this weapon was introduced, there was no special weapons. Okay, you had your primaries in your kinetic and your energy slot, and then you had your heavy weapons, which consisted of all shotguns, all fusion rifles, all sniper rifles, all breech-loaded grenade launchers. I think those were the only specials back in Destiny 2's original game. But yeah, so it was definitely like, okay, I could see this working. I could see why it would work. You know, I've got the shotgun on, it's exotic. You know, I could pull it out whenever I wanted, even if I didn't have ammo for it, and blah, 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 so on and so forth. But since then, since those days, we have now had shotguns move to the special ammo category. So why would I want to use Legend of Acrius, you know, for its enhanced radar capabilities, when I can just use a special ammo shotgun that's going to have a lot more ammo readily available, right? Plus, inside PvE, Long March just doesn't really do anything for us. So the changes that I had in mind for Long March start with the radar, okay? And what I would first of all do is change it so the radar was active at all times, okay? And this means even in Grandmaster content. Like anytime you had Legend of Acrius equipped, your radar would not be disabled, including if you were suppressed, blinded, whatever, like your radar wouldn't be disabled. And more importantly, inside Grandmaster content, your radar would still remain active so long as you have Legend of Acrius equipped. And again, this builds back into that idea of the risk reward situation, because the risk of running in there to that champion to kill that champion, I would want to know if I'm going to get blindsided by enemies that are behind me. I have a radar now active even in Grandmaster content, and it's the only weapon that would do that too, mind you. Like no other weapon, no other armor piece in the game would give you the ability to have a radar in Grandmaster, with the exception of Legend of Acrius. And again, I think that would be just a really awesome change. I think that would be a perfect change for the weapon. Now, the other change I would make, if for the radar, to keep the radar just feeling fresh, just give it an enhanced radar. Maybe when you just have it equipped, maybe when you're holding it in your hands, if you wanted to put some limitations on it, you're only getting the enhanced radar when you're holding it in your hands. But yeah, I think that would be just the perfect thing to do for the radar situation. But the other change that I would make to Long March, and this one might be a little bit controversial, but I think that having some sort of ammo regeneration feature as part of the weapon would be a tremendous buff to this weapon. Now, hold on, I know people hear ammo regeneration, heavy weapon, Legend of Acrius, like lots of people like, no already, but hear me out on this, okay? Legend of Acrius, it is an exotic shotgun in the heavy slot, so like it's already got competition from all the other exotics in the game, or I'm sorry, all the other legendaries in the game that are special ammo, right? So it needs to have something more unique. Now also the perk Long March, like I don't know about y'all, but when I hear again Long March, that just sounds like something that like it should have to do something with movement, right? So the idea I came up with is, when you are moving, when you're actively sprinting for at least, let's say 10 seconds, it could be longer, it could be shorter, but once you've been sprinting and actively moving, not just sprinting in a corner, but actively moving for 10 seconds, it will generate 1 ammo, right? That way, theoretically, you could have infinite ammo. If you want to have 15 shots, you would have to run around for 150 seconds, which is a long time. That's like 2.5 minutes, which I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to run around for 2.5 minutes just to generate full Legend of Acrius ammo. But I think that would be a tremendous help to the weapon, okay? Because it would be the only weapon in the game that can actually, or the only heavy weapon, I should say, that can actually generate its own ammo from thin air. And I know a lot of people might think Whisper of the Worm, oh, Whisper of the Worm does that. Whisper of the Worm, you still have to have at least 3 shots in order to generate ammo. This, you could literally be on empty, sprint for 10 seconds in a line, or doing curves and stuff like that, and it would generate that ammo for you. And importantly, the balancing factor is you would have to be like sprinting. You can't just be holding still. You can't be sprinting in a corner. You'd have to actually be moving around, similar to Centrifuge. With Centrifuge, if you stop moving at more than 1.8 meters per second, I think is what it is, 1.8 meters per second, that buff goes away. And it would be the same thing with Acrius. Like, on the side of the screen, you'd start seeing a bar fill up, and it fills up slowly over the course of 10 seconds. But if you stop moving for 0.1 seconds, it goes down and it goes away. So now it's not going to generate ammo. You're going to start sprinting again. But I think that this would be a tremendous addition to Legend of Acrius, and it would kind of build into that idea of the Long March, idea of behind the perk. But yeah, with that being said, we are going on 13 minutes talking about Legend of Acrius. I think that those changes would bring the weapon up in terms of usage by a lot. I think that the free ammo is what would really draw people into it. But yeah, with that being said, I want to hear your thoughts on it. What do you think could make Legend of Acrius better? What do you think about what I said? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Just tell me all that stuff in the comments. Of course, drop a like, it helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content, conversations, discussions, debates, stuff like that. And guys, do me a favor, watch the videos you see on the end screen here, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you'll like them. See you on the next one. Bye for now, guys.